Here's all the rumors and misinformation that are going around about Blake Lively and what the actual information really is. Rumor number one is that Blake Lively is difficult to work with on set and that she's had issues with castmates before, including on Gossip Girl. This is false. There has actually been no castmates of Blake Lively to come out and say she's difficult to work with or that they didn't get along with her on set. In fact, the opposite. She's actually had numerous co-stars and even producers and directors come out in the last week to defend Blake against this rumor. The Gossip Girl rumor's gone around for quite some time, and I believe it stemmed from this relationship. So this is Blake and Leighton Meester from Gossip Girl, and New York Magazine published an article quite some time ago saying that the two avoided each other like the plague while filming. This was actually proven to be false, and Blake's publicist at the time actually came out with a statement saying, Blake and Leighton have never been best friends and never professed to be. Blake goes to work, does her job, and goes home. The article even mentioned that the castmates on set were having to choose sides because of this, but that again was proven false. Vanity Fair did an interview with Joshua Safran, and he said that that was not the case at all, that the two of them were just fine on set. He was actually quoted as saying, Blake and Leighton were not friends. They were friendly, but they were not friends like Serena and Blair. Yet the second they'd be together on the set, it's as if they actually were. And Michelle Trachtenberg was quoted as saying, it's funny because when we were filming, there was Leighton hates Blake, Blake hates Leighton, everyone hates Blake, everyone hates Leighton, everyone hates Chase, blah, blah, blah. And she said, it really wasn't. We were all just cool on set. Rumor number two, Ryan and Blake got married on a plantation. This one is actually true. They actually got married at Boone Hall in South Carolina in 2012. And unfortunately, a lot of people at that time were getting married at this location. And this is the reason why. The Notebook, one of the most romantic movies ever, was actually filmed at that location just prior to Blake and Ryan choosing it as their site for their wedding. The house at Boone Hall was actually used in the movie as Allie's family's summer home, and unfortunately, everyone was thinking it was this beautiful location to get married on. This is actually the article that came out after Blake and Ryan wed there, saying Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds married where the Notebook was filmed. The couple tied the knot at sunset in a super romantic location. And the Avenue of Oaks that's at Boone Plantation is actually rumored to be one of the backdrops and inspiration for Gone with the Wind. And the main house was actually used on Days of Our Lives and a bunch of other shows as well. Blake and Ryan had expressed their regret at getting married there before, but in 2020, they came out with a formal apology saying, what we saw at the time was a wedding venue on Pinterest. What we saw after was a place built upon devastating tragedy. They posted their apology on Instagram saying, we're ashamed that in the past, we've allowed ourselves to be uninformed about how deeply rooted systemic racism is. We want to educate ourselves about other people's experiences and talk to our kids about everything, all of it, especially our own complicity. They said they had actually redone their whole wedding at a different location because they were so bothered about the venue they originally chose. And they also donated $200,000 to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Ryan Reynolds said, years ago we got married again at home, but shame works in weird ways. A giant effing mistake like that can either cause you to shut down or it can reframe things and move you into action. It doesn't mean you won't F up again, but repatterning and challenging lifelong social conditioning is a job that doesn't end. Rumor number three, Blake Lively defended Woody Allen. This is false. When Blake was questioned about the accusations against him, she said she couldn't talk about something she didn't know about and wasn't informed on. What she did say was she could speak from her own experience working with him and that she felt he had empowered the women on set. As for the rumor that she supported Harvey Weinstein, that again is absolutely false. She actually said the opposite. She stood behind all the women that were coming out and stating what had happened to them. Rumor number four, Blake Lively promoted her hair care brand during It Ends With Us. This is actually true. But there's context, which is always so important. Blake had signed on to launch her new hair care products in August of last year. Now, the film It Ends With Us was actually supposed to be released on Valentine's Day, but they were behind schedule, so it got pushed twice. It got pushed the first time to June, and the second time it got pushed to August. Celebrities do cross promotions all the time, so I don't think this is typically an issue. The problem with this is that people didn't like that she was promoting her hair care while also promoting a movie about DV. The other side to this, however, is that Blake was told not to promote the DV side of the movie and to keep it light and fluffy and promote all of the hope and perseverance that is seen in her character of Lily in the movie. That brings us to rumor number 5, that Blake Lively was avoiding the DV topic while she was promoting It Ends With Us. Now, this is true and false. Blake and the rest of the cast had been given 2 pages on instructions of how to go about promoting this film, and she was simply going by what everyone told her to do, as was the rest of the cast. Now, in this document, there is a section called What to Avoid, and this is what it says. Focus more on Lily's strength and resilience as opposed to describing the film as a story about DV. Empowerment is not just about standing up to adversity, but also about having the power to overcome within oneself and grow from it and developing agency to shape the future. It also says to avoid talking about this film that makes it feel sad or heavy. It's supposed to be a story of hope. So what ended up happening at the beginning of the press tour for this movie is Blake and the rest of the cast, including Justin, would keep it really light when they got into the topic of DV. When this alleged campaign smear against Blake started, what they were doing was taking clips of her interviews where she was keeping things light or avoiding talking about the DV, and they would only show that. But if you watch the rest of the interview, Blake would actually answer the question and go into her feelings about the DV situation. One of the interview clips that had gone viral was her and the reporter kind of laughing about the situation, and that is the only clip that got pushed out. The reporter actually went on his news broadcast and defended Blake, saying that it was just them kind of having some banter, and then Blake did actually answer the question in a very respectful manner, but nobody ended up seeing that. Now, the other side to this is allegedly when Justin Baldoni's PR team caught wind of the backlash that Blake was getting over this, they started telling Justin Baldoni to talk more about DV, and that's exactly what he did. So after the first few days, he started talking a lot about DV survivors and pushing that aspect while Blake was sticking to the script. And the 6th thing we need to talk about is this lady. So this is the reporter who released the interview she had done with Blake from 2016, where she claims that it's the interview that made her almost want to quit. Now, there's a lot going on with this whole story. First and foremost, she released this clip 8 years after it had been released, and she actually hadn't released anything on her YouTube channel or anywhere else for that matter for years before that. She also claimed that this interview had made her want to quit. However, she ended up interviewing Blake Lively again after that. She's also tried to take down other celebrities by doing the exact same thing, including releasing a video of an interview she did with Amber Heard during Amber Heard and Johnny Depp's trial. Now, it's interesting to note that the same crisis management PR person, Melissa Nathan, works for Justin Baldoni. She was also working for Johnny Depp at the time. So now people are suspecting that she may be part of this campaign smear that was going around. However, all that aside, the interview makes Blake look absolutely terrible. She looks like a total bitch in the interview, and there's actually a reason behind that. It's context, and it was completely left out when she posted this video. In 2016, there was a huge movement taking place at that time in Hollywood with all the female actresses. What was happening is they were standing up saying they didn't want to be asked anymore about their clothing, their makeup, their family life, their pregnancies. Instead, they wanted to be treated more like the actors who were being asked about the roles they were playing and more kind of difficult, intriguing questions than what they'd been getting. Blake was actually a huge advocate for this movie, as was people like Nicole Kidman, Reese Witherspoon. They would stop the interviewer if they were being asked questions about their clothing, their makeup, or their pregnancy or children, and they would ask them to ask different questions. Sometimes they'd even just walk away from the interviewer completely. Now, Blake, during this interview, when the very first question out of her mouth had to do with her belly and having a baby bump, she turned it around and tried to make it light and threw it back at her. And then the next question she was asked was about the clothing that she wore for the timepiece era. So immediately Blake looks to the person that's sitting next to her, her co-star, and she says, I wonder if she would be asking men the same question. So did it make Blake look bad? Absolutely. Could she have handled it better? Absolutely. But at the time, this was the big push, and Blake was standing up for her rights as well as every female actress who was trying to take a stand and make it stop. Bottom line, context is important, as is doing your research. Take 2 seconds to look into things and find out if it's fact or fiction before jumping on a hate train. Did Blake make mistakes? Absolutely. She's not perfect, and she'll probably make more in the future.